Welcome, everyone. I am so pleased that you're here to learn more about finding balance in high school and prioritizing your mental health. I'm pleased to introduce you to two of my good friends and professional colleagues, Vanessa from University of Colorado in Colorado Springs and Molly from the University of Arizona. Welcome.
So thank you so much, Amy, and thank you to all of you who are here with us this afternoon. As Ms. Bencomo mentioned, my name is Molly Ingram. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Assistant Director of Admission for the University of Arizona. I am based in Livermore, so I'm not too far away from you all, and I'm so pleased to be joined by my colleague Vanessa, who I will let introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vanessa Aya. I use she, her pronouns as well, and I am with the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, or UCCS. I started with the university about 22 years ago as an academic advisor on campus, but it has been for the last 11 years that I have worked for our Office of Admissions, working with students from Western states like you all. Glad you could be here today. All right, and so we'll get right into the agenda. And so, we're going to first address and name some of the common stressors that y'all students might be experiencing right now. I forgot to mention to you all that I am also a parent of take it back, no longer two high school students. I now have a college freshman about to start his fall semester in a couple of weeks. I have a high school junior, and then I have a middle schooler. And so I know from this past year and a half of this pandemic, what a hard year it's been. And here we are going back into another year of unknowns. And so we're going to talk about those stressors. Also, we are going to talk about the various options and pathways. Of course, many of you are looking at the college opportunities four-year, but there are other things out there too. And, certainly all of those are viable things that you could choose from as well. Molly will then go into building a diverse college list. The media often focuses on just those top, quote unquote, top 20 or 30 schools, but there are a lot of choices out there, students and parents. And so, we want to make sure that you are diversifying your list. Finally, Molly will start us off also with talking about the various high school course options that you have. You all are in a wonderful school district in Northern California, and we know that, you have advanced placement classes to choose from, honors programs. Maybe some of you are taking, community college classes while still in high school. And so she'll talk about, how to kind of weigh those different classes when it comes time to registering for those of you who are, maybe sophomore, just starting off your sophomore year or just starting off your junior year. And then kind of the theme of this whole presentation is balance, and balancing not just your classroom activities, but also those that are outside, and balancing your home life. And finally, we'll wrap up with just some reminders about self-care. We heard a lot about it again through the pandemic, but more so even now as you are going into, you seniors who are preparing your college applications and getting ready to hit that submit button, we want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. All right, so as far as common stressors, I lived this life, watching my high school senior last year in terms of the things that was giving him a little bit of angst. And again, one of the quotes that I remember coming across when Molly and I first did this presentation for another district was again around this idea of balance, and that quote was, "A balanced student is a better student. They don't have to do it all." But, in terms of what you all have on your minds right now as you are putting together your packets, certainly testing, to test, to not test. If you do test, which test do you take? The ACT, the SAT. Then I'm hearing now that there are some places that it's just hard to access. The tests are either being canceled or they're full. And so certainly that is again, causing anxiety amongst students. We've got certainly the GPA. What is a good GPA? And that is, there we go. Sorry, my screen went blank there a little bit. What is considered a good GPA? And, and that will depend on where you might be looking to get into. A lot of students, they have on their brain that, I got to be that 5.0 student. I got to be that 4.0 student. And, Molly will be talking a little bit more about all the different schools, all the different good schools that are not necessarily looking just for those perfect test scores and perfect GPAs. Extracurricular, we'll talk about that towards the last part of the presentation, as far as, balancing that along with your schoolwork. And students, y'all are trying to do it all. You're trying to be good students, but I know that you all are also trying to help out with your families. Maybe if you have younger siblings, you're also trying to have a social life, even in this COVID time. And then, again, trying to balance that potentially with a part-time job while you're in high school. Another common stressor, not just for students, but also for parents, is money. How do we pay for a higher education? Is that going to come in the form of scholarships? Having that loan conversation with your family, working while you're in high school, to save money before you get to college, or working while you're in college. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. And of course, this past year and a half, a lot of different stressors out there, from race relations, Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, the election. It certainly was an intense political climate this past year. The pandemic, we've already gone over that. And of course, distance learning. Some students this past year never went out of distance learning. They were in it the whole time. Others, like my son, he didn't get to go back hybrid until March of his senior year. And, that always, whenever there's a change, it takes an adjustment. And so students, I want you to know that when you feel anxious, you just have to name it and know that, we do see you, we're living this with you. So are your high school counselors, so are your teachers, and we are all concerned about the effect that all of these things have on you. And you're not alone. Your fellow students are also going through it with you. So, definitely, recognize it when you start to feel anxious, that this is not something that we're doing that you're not doing all by yourself. All right, let's go to the next slide. And so I certainly, one of the things, and this is probably the hardest thing for students to do, parents, I know it's hard for us to do this too, but to tune out that noise. One of the jokes that we have in our admissions office is, a student will call in and they'll say, somebody said that your admissions requirements is X, Y, Z. And it's like, man, there is that somebody getting us in trouble again. And so just know that admissions counselors like myself, like Molly, and the ones that you might have tuned into this past week on these various college kickoff webinars, we are here to make the process as transparent as possible. So please don't be afraid to ask us questions, because we want to provide you with the most up-to-date information so that you can make a wise choice, an informed choice, when it comes to something as important as your future and when it comes to your career and academic goals. This one is a hard one, social media. You'll see it coming up in October. I saw it with my son, certainly. On TikTok, students will start to, put up, their little videos, and they'll show their stats. I apply to these 10 schools. Here's my GPA. Here's my test score. Here's all the things I was involved in. And then when my decisions start to roll in, I'm going to duet that, and you'll see how, whether or not I got accepted. And students, I urge you to remember that you are more than a list of those statistics on TikTok. You are more than the lines on your resume. And I want you to take all the things you see on social media with a grain of salt, because you are going to spend, you have spent a lot of time on your college applications. And we as admissions counselors, we invest that time to read them. And so please make sure that you are tuning that out and listening for the sound of your own voice and your own music. There are a lot of people, again, cheering you on. Your parents, your fellow classmates, your family, your friends, and we all have advice to offer to you, just like on this webinar. But your job is to sort through it and ultimately decide what your pathway is and what information you need to put together a wise college list that works for you, not for anybody else, for you. Let's see. And I think that's it with this particular slide. So let's go into the pathways. So again, you all go to a wonderful school district, and the curriculum that has been put forth for you, obviously, these are classes that you need to graduate. But your district has also provided you with choices to prepare you for a wide variety of post-secondary pathways. You have choices. And so know that, you might be looking at not just four-year universities. Some of you might be considering attending community college, which at some of them in California, they are free. But know that you have, a lot of choices. In California, you have over 200, almost 300 choices. But then when you expand it to the rest of the US, you can see that you have a little over 4,000. And again, the news often will only talk about those, those brand name schools, 20 of them, 30 of them. And we're all not like that. And so the vast majority of us would love to see a wide variety of students, not just the 5.0 students, not just the ACT, the perfect ACT, SAT students. Like each of you have unique talents and interests. Of course, there are a lot of schools in California and elsewhere that will most likely suit you better than the 20 or the 30 schools that the media focuses on. So again, and Molly will get into this, you want to make sure to diversify your list. You'll want to apply to ones that you'll likely get into. You'll want to apply to ones where, your GPA and your test score maybe matches it pretty much exactly to what your stats are. And then, if you feel you are a good fit for what we call those lottery schools, and I like to use the term lottery versus the term reach. You'll often hear the term reach schools, but really lottery for me kind of is a better word, because even for those reach schools, it is not a guarantee that the valedictorians of high schools across the nation will get into those lottery schools. It is not a guarantee that the 4.5 student or the 4.0 student will get in. They're just, if you look at it at the most simplistic terms, there simply is not enough seats for all the valedictorians to get into those top schools. There's not. And so keep that in mind as you put together these lists. Make sure that your college lists are not only lottery schools. You've got some other choices. I don't discount students who choose other paths besides the four-year path. As I mentioned, there are some very viable careers that do not require a four-year degree. Perhaps they require an associate degree, or they require a certificate or an apprenticeship completion type of situation. And then also, I left this off, military. Maybe some of you are considering military after high school, and make sure you are researching what that all entails. For example, perhaps you are looking at the ROTC route, how that could help you pay for college. But again, just make sure that you're utilizing your researching skills to look at all the different benefits and advantages and whatnot of looking at these different roots. And so now I will turn it over to Molly to talk a little bit more about acceptance rates and rankings.
Thanks, Vanessa. And so here we can see some of those brand name schools that Vanessa mentioned. Very common to refer to Stanford, UCLA, and Berkeley as those kinds of lottery schools, just because so many people, not just in California or even in our own country, but the world, want to attend these schools. And we don't show you these acceptance rates and rankings to scare you or make you think that you don't have a chance of getting in, but just to kind of show you what the reality of the situation is. Stanford, UCLA, and Berkeley have very low acceptance rates, and these are typically the schools that we hear about the media. You know, they're always talking about these schools, but in actuality, the national average college acceptance rate, it's much, much higher. So you can see that it's around 66%. So that means that of, the majority of schools that you apply to in the nation, not just these lottery brand name schools, they really want to admit students. Many schools outside of the state of California, they even have an assured admissions process. The University of Arizona, for instance, is one of those. So there are schools out there besides California schools where if you meet the criteria that they're looking for, then you know that you'll be admitted. So when we talk about diversifying your college list, we want to make sure that you're thinking about all of your options. Earlier, Vanessa showed you that there are thousands of schools for you to choose from if you broaden your scope beyond California. And this really will help with your kind of overall mindset when you apply to college if you keep this in mind, because there is a place for you out there. It might not necessarily be Stanford, UCLA, or Berkeley, but there are so many colleges out there that would love to have you on their campus. Now, moving along, rankings aren't everything, and I cannot stress that enough. When I was in high school, I certainly got caught in the trap of thinking, I have to go to a UC, I have to stay in California. That was very much the mindset of the high school that I went to. And the name of the school that you go to, it doesn't dictate your success. I know many of my friends who they did go to Berkeley, and did they get a better job than my friends who went to an out-of-state school? No, it has nothing to do with the name of the school, but rather, did you go to college or not? When you apply for jobs, many of these places, they're not looking to see what the name of your diploma says. They want to see, do you have a college degree? And really, do you have the skills that they're looking for that job? So don't worry about if you don't get into one of these brand name schools that the rest of your life is over. That's definitely not true. College is really what you make of it. Every college is going to be able to offer you something special, as well as many things that every university has. If you've listened to college presentations, you've probably heard a lot of college reps say, we have hundreds of clubs, we have X number of clubs. Every college is going to be able to provide you with these resources and opportunities. It's up to you to take advantage of what's offered at the college that you ultimately choose to attend. And that leads very well into my second point here. Take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you. Employers, they're looking for skills, not names of universities. So focus on what you can control. You can control, studying and doing your best in high school. You cannot control whether Berkeley is going to accept you over another valedictorian or, 4.5 student. Just do your best with what is available to you. Take advantage of opportunities that you have, whether it's in your community or at your high school, and also just know your own limits. I think this really has to do with mental health and balance. You don't have to do everything to get into college. Focus on what's important to you and what you yourself can handle, and don't worry about doing everything and anything that is available. And that kind of leads into balance, especially when you're picking out your class schedule. Now, I'm not sure if you've already picked your classes or if that's something that's coming up soon, but keep in mind that just because your high school offers a certain number of AP courses doesn't mean that you should be taking all of those AP classes. That's not necessarily going to benefit you in your college applications, and it's probably not going to be good for your overall mental health. When you are choosing what AP classes to take, consider the following questions. Is this course going to prepare you for what you want to do in college? If you don't know what you want to study in college, that's okay. A lot of people don't, but you might have an idea of kind of the area of interest. For instance, I didn't take AP Calculus when I was in high school because I knew that I was not that kind of student that wanted to go into something that would require advanced math in college. I majored in history, so I knew that math wasn't necessarily that kind of AP course that I should have been taking, and I wasn't interested in it. I was interested in taking, AP English, AP History, humanities courses that really did help prepare me for what I wanted to do in college. Also, do you plan on taking the AP exam for this course? I had many friends in high school where they took every single AP class that my high school offered, but they didn't have time to study for every single exam that went along with those classes. Or if they did, they didn't necessarily do well on all of these exams. These exams cost money, it costs time to prepare for. So ask yourself, do I have the time and mental capacity to really focus on studying for these exams? Also, do you even like the subject? If you hate a particular subject and you know that you're not really going to use that in college, do you really need the AP level, or could you just take the non-AP class? And then also think about other factors in your life that might detract from your ability to really focus on particular AP courses. For me personally, when I was in high school, I was editor-in-chief of my newspaper. I found more value in being editor-in-chief of my newspaper than I found in taking an extra AP class. So I chose to take regular science as opposed to that AP physics course because that's not where my focus was. And I knew that I couldn't devote the time to being editor-in-chief and having that extra AP class. And then lastly, why do you want to take this course? Is it because you think it's going to look good on your college application? If that's the only reason, then you should stop and ask yourself, are there any other reasons that justify taking this class? A more balanced approach is typically the best way to go. It is far better to do well in a few AP classes than take too many and do poorly in them. And the same could be said of college. If you're registering for classes your first semester of college, you don't need to take the max number of units that's allowed. Start out simple. College is a big adjustment, and you want to make sure that you're successful and that you get off to a really great start. Another thing to keep in mind, weighted GPA isn't always everything. A lot of students, they think, oh, well, I need to take this AP class because it's going to improve my GPA. I'm going to have that 4.2, whatever. That doesn't always benefit you. At my university, for instance, the University of Arizona, we do not use weighted GPA for merit scholarship purposes because we recognize that not every student across the country has the opportunity to take the same number of AP exams. So when we evaluate students for our merit scholarship, we're just looking at that unweighted GPA. So in theory, getting an A in a regular math class might be better than getting a B in a weighted AP class for scholarship purposes at Arizona. So keep in mind the schools that you're looking at and the different kind of policies that they have. I'm sure that Vanessa could talk about University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and how that might impact the admissions process. So just keep that in mind as well. And then I'll talk a little bit about extracurriculars and finding a balance. So very similar to when you're registering for classes, there is no magic number for how many extracurriculars a college expects you to have. We care much more about your mental health and well-being than an extra line on your activities resume. And they don't have to be formally organized clubs or sports to be considered relevant. So many times students think, well, I need to register for this club at my high school and this club so I can add them and show colleges that I'm involved. Well, maybe you take care of your siblings. Maybe your grandparents need your help around the house. So examples like the ones listed here, we know that that takes a significant amount of time out of your day. And that should be considered something that you want to tell colleges about because we can't learn that about you just by looking at your grades grades and your transcripts. Also, if you have work experience, jobs are a really great example that shows that you have time management skills, that you can multitask, and it does involve responsibility. So don't be afraid to put down a job that you have, whether you're babysitting or cat sitting or working at your local sandwich shop, whatever it is, that's also a really great example for us. But don't worry about joining clubs just for the sake of joining clubs. It should be a genuine interest, just like a genuine interest in the classes that you're registering for. And then I will pass it over to Vanessa to kind of talk about how you can balance extracurriculars during a pandemic, just because we know that this is not a typical year. Last year certainly was. This year is also, it's an unknown. So we'll talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think that, and Molly would probably say this too, when she looked at applications from this past year's students, y'all got really creative with remaining involved outside of your coursework. And so, you know, for example, I see on the screen here, you know, some of you were still able to do speech and debate team. You know, I was a volunteer judge for our Southern Colorado tournament that was in the spring, and it was amazing to watch. And so we know you're out there, you know, trying your best given what we're working with right now. And so I would encourage you to keep that spirit up. And as we head into this new school year, and, you know, be unafraid of, you know, keep on trying those new things and finding new ways to discover your interests. You know, next week, my kids will be starting up their school year, and, you know, I'm seeing those emails about, you know, their welcome leaders, you know, being available to the new freshmen starting at the high school. You know, I see that at the middle school too. And so they are, again, being creative on how to connect with them, whether that's through social distancing in person, connecting via Zoom. I know my kids, you know, connect with their friends on Discord, and colleges are like that too. We are trying to figure this out. And so if you're doing it in high school, and if, oh gosh, knock on wood, that, you know, when you come to college campuses, you'll have that skill. But again, you know, hopefully we'll be back to more of that in-person kinds of things. And you'll see on the slide here, the second half of the slide, there are volunteer opportunities in a wide variety of ways. We read about some of these in this past year's applications, you know, with nursing homes, with some of the more stricter COVID in-person restrictions. Students were still seeing residents via Zoom. I saw this at high schools too, you know, virtual proms, or, you know, socially distanced proms, or, you know, proms for students with special needs. You know, there was a lot of different things going on. And I imagine that you all are already in the process of planning some things for this school year. Tutoring certainly is something that continues to be available via a wide variety of means. Volunteering in different places. You know, the example that you see on the screen here is with the local food bank. And then of course, writing to our service people, you know, active duty overseas. That is something that has always existed and continues to exist and be a need. And so, you know, again, I think the key here, students, is making sure that you find something when it comes to volunteer opportunities that touches your heart. And so if we go to the next slide, we talk a little bit about, you know, what some universities and college reps might be looking for in your college applications. And so you see 3 here, the first one being dedication. Are you dedicated to a particular activity or a particular club? But honestly, I will, say to this students is that I think what I like to see, or what I look for in a college application, is dedication, not specifically to an activity necessarily, but a dedication to learning about yourself and discovering who you are and trying to figure that out. And again, I've seen it in my time at the University of Colorado Springs. That's a lot of different interests. And the self-learning and the self-growth doesn't stop at college, not whether it's with the majors, whether it's discovering that, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I would like to build Baja cars when I got to college. That was never something that crossed my mind. And so, when it comes to dedication, yes, we like to see that you're dedicated to a few different activities or clubs or organizations. But again, depending on how you put together your college application, I do appreciate a student who is willing to put themselves out there and try something that, they never thought of before, because you're going to do that in college. And I would hope that you would not just do that in high school, but carry that over to college. Leadership is another thing that is really important. And I think leadership is not just that person who stands in the front of the room and talks to large groups and leads in that respect. There are leaders who do it in a quiet manner. There are leaders who maybe their forte is being the behind the scenes person who is keeping everyone on task or keeping the calendar on task. And know that we as college admissions counselors, when we are reading your application, we see that. And so, try and figure out what kind of leader you might be. Again, recognizing that you all have different talents and styles. And then lasting impact. I think that, I would hope, and I see it again, and I saw it again and again in college applications this past year, this desire of high school seniors like y'all to leave the world better than you found it. And so you start that process in high school and discover, kind of figuring out like, okay, this is my community. This is the little or big thing that I can do to make it a better place for the future students that are coming through. And so that's what again, I think myself and, some admissions counselors might be looking for that when you're putting together your applications. But again, the main thing that we want to see is that you are picking things that are important to you and your heart and what motivates you. So keep that in mind. I think there is one more slide, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so mental health, that's a big deal, obviously. And again, we will reiterate that we want you to make self-care a priority. When you all come to whatever college campus you're going to, when students come to my campus in Colorado Springs, we want to make sure that they know that we take that seriously and we want that to be a priority, and that there are many ways for students to connect and make sure that they are taking care of their mental health and taking care of themselves. You'll see some of the important things that you all might have been doing already during the pandemic. And so hopefully, again, you'll carry those over. Staying connected in person from, via virtual means, getting outside and getting active, moving your body around, getting creative. Maybe you set aside time this past year and a half to learn how to play the guitar or maybe play the ukulele. I know I've heard my 15-year-old up in their room, I'm like, wow, okay, we're gonna do that today. I hope you took some time this past year and a half to do that. And then of course, we talked about this before, tuning out the noise. Do limit your time on screens and give yourself a break that way. When it comes to self-care, I have another quote for you all. I do like this particular one. But when it comes to self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And so you are starting a new year. And so I want you to be mindful of doing things this senior year that matter to you. Like I said, my son, he just had his senior year and man, was it tough. and it wasn't just tough because of the pandemic, but seniors, you all have a very busy life when it comes to the classes that you take, the milestones that you want to hit. And so I want you to enjoy that. And so I think it's so important that you all are taking this time before your school year kicks off to get your college applications done so that you have that much more time for you to really enjoy your last year in high school before you come and see us at our various college campuses. We are ready to listen to all of your individual stories in your college applications and support you. And that's all I have to say. Molly, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I just second what Vanessa said. Really, senior year goes by so quickly. College even goes by so quickly. And the more that you can do to kind of prepare yourself for your college applications now, so you can focus on having fun and really enjoying that senior year, the better. A lot of universities, if their applications aren't already open, they're going to be opening soon. Arizona, our application has been open since July. So in theory, you could get that application in, don't worry about it, get your admissions decision and then start your senior year. So there are quite a few different applications out there that are flexible in terms of deadlines. Not every university has that rigid UC, it's open for this amount of time and then you have to wait months until you find your admissions decisions out. Not every college is like that. And so we really wanted to take the time to ask if you had any questions. And then I'm also going to plug the organization that Vanessa and I are both a part of. It is called RAC. It stands for Regional Admission Counselors of California. And the website is down there below, regionaladmissions.com. There are over 100 of us that are stationed within the state of California and work for universities outside of California. Our universities, they see value in placing us here to work with you students. We're on your time zone. We are here for you. And we also have a lot of really great upcoming virtual presentations that RAC is going to do. So if you want to learn about other universities, we do kind of speed dating, as we call it, and you can learn all about our different schools. But does anyone have any questions for us now that we could answer? You feel free to unmute yourself, feel free to put it into the chat. We would love to answer your questions, and then we'll also take a little bit of time to tell you about mental health and wellness services at our universities.